Yeah, you see the gear. We are hours away from kickoff in the 2022 NFL Draft. Who will my Atlanta Falcons pick? Please do not pick Malik Willis. Please go defense first. Before we start this draft, man, I just want to talk about historically black colleges and universities, man. Now, we all know the greatest athletes and to ever step on the football field have been athletes like Jerry Rice, Shannon Sharp, Walter Payton. But what about the athletes that don't get talked about? I'm going to tell you all about five of the greatest athletes to step on the field from HBCUs not named Jerry Rice. No disrespect. Aeneas Williams didn't see the field at Southern University until his junior season, where he had 20 interceptions and 28 pass deflections to end his career. That was enough to get him selected in the third round of the 1991 NFL Draft by the Arizona Cardinals, where he would go on to play 10 seasons before being traded to the Rams in 2001. But he did help lead St. Louis to their second Super Bowl appearance within 3 years. He will retire in 2005 with 12 defensive touchdowns. That includes 9 pick sixes and 3 fumbles for touchdowns, 55 interceptions overall, and he gained over 1,000 yards in defensive return yards. He is a 4-time All-Pro selection and was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2014. David Deacon Jones played 1 year at South Carolina State before his scholarship got revoked after they found out that he protested in a civil rights rally, sat out a year, and his head coach at South Carolina State at the time became the head coach at Mississippi Vocational College, now known as Mississippi Valley State, and gave David Deacon Jones another chance. But he had to sleep in cots in opposing players' gyms because he couldn't get a hotel because of the color of his skin. He would go on to be selected in the 14th round of the 1961 NFL Draft by the Los Angeles Rams. This 6'5", 275-pound defensive end paved the way for the modern defensive end that we see in today's league. He had the size, the strength, the aggression, and the speed. If you think that you were just going to stop him on any blitz or any play for that matter, you might want to think again. And a matter of fact, he's also accredited for perfecting the head slap, which is now illegal. He also invented the term sack. Jones led the league in sacks in 64, 65, 67, and 68 and 69. He finished his career with 173 and a half sacks. That sits third behind Bruce Smith and Reggie White for the most career sacks of all time. Marion Motley from South Carolina State was an undrafted free agent picked up by the Cleveland Browns in 1946. Didn't play long in the NFL, but he gained 4,720 yards and 31 touchdowns on just 828 carries. His yards per carry average is 5.7. That was a record at the time. He was also a force as a linebacker, and he's regarded as one of the greatest all-around players of all time. Jim Brown was a tough act to follow after he retired in 1965, but LeRoy Kelly out of Morgan State, well, let me tell y'all something. He did not disappoint. Nobody in the NFL or the AFL had more attempts, more rushing yards, or more rushing touchdowns than LeRoy Kelly. He led both leagues in attempts, rushing yards, and rushing touchdowns in 1967 and 1968. He was also number 1 in yards per carry in 1966 and 67. He also led pro football in rushing touchdowns in 1966, and he returned 94 punts for 990 yards and 3 touchdowns and 76 kickoffs for 1,784 yards in his career. He was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in 1994. And who could forget FAMU's own Bob Hayes? Before he became one of the NFL's best vertical receivers, Hayes was one of the most prominent track stars, tying the world record of 9.2 seconds in the 100-yard dash in 1962, and he won 2 gold medals at the 64 Tokyo Olympics despite running on a messed up track. He was selected by the Dallas Cowboys in 1964 before the Olympics. In his first 2 NFL seasons, he caught 110 passes for 2,235 yards and 25 touchdowns. He's sometimes credited with the advent of both the zone defense and the advancement of bump and run coverage to try to contain him. He would never have another 1,000-yard season after these first 2, but he averaged a league high of 26.1 yards per catch in 1970 and 24 yards per catch in 1971. He was also a great punt returner as well. He was Tyreek Hill before Tyreek Hill was thought of. Let's just put it that way. The whole point of doing this is just to show that not every great college football player comes from an Ohio State, a Michigan, Alabama, Florida State. You don't have to come from a big school, man. HBCUs have produced a lot of great NFL players. I am proud of my HBCU heritage, and I will continue to push HBCU athletics until it's all in your face and you ain't got no other choice but to look at it every opportunity. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm Rico McGee. This has been the Sports Minute, and as always, we'll see you in a minute.